Welcome to another episode of The Modern Hotelier. Today we are joined by Lindsey Ueberroth, CEO of Preferred Hotels and Resorts. David, what were some of your favorite takeaways from this conversation?
Well, the one thing is that we've had a lot of people on the program that have traveled a lot and been to a lot of places. I think she might be in the number one seating right now after listening to her. So I think her story is great on how, she's traveled the world. The story behind her family acquiring Preferred is amazing. And I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, she really embodies what it means to travel. And she knows all the trends, not even just from traveling, but being a CEO of Preferred Hotel. We saw kind of how she has been ahead of things like sustainability, ahead on loyalty. She's almost seems like she is one of the trendsetters in our industry where she kind of has an idea of where things are going before they get there. So this conversation was one of my favorites, especially around luxury independent hotels. So enjoy this conversation and let us know what you think.
Enjoy it. Welcome to the Modern Hotelier, hospitality's most engaged podcast. I'm David Malilly.
I'm Steve Karen.
And I'm John Boomhofer.
Steve, who do we have on the program today?
Yeah, David. Today we have on Lindsey Ueberroth. Lindsey is the CEO of Preferred Hotels and Resorts. She leads the world's largest independent hotel brand, representing more than 650 distinctive properties across 85 countries. Lindsey focuses on global growth, brand strategy, and empowering independent hotels to thrive in a competitive marketplace. Welcome to the show, Lindsey.
It's great to see you both. I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay, so we're going to go through a couple different areas. We're going to go through a real quick lightning round of questions. We're going to get into your personal background, your career, and then we're going to dive into some industry topics. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, here we go. What is something that you wish you were better at?
Cooking.
Okay, what's the most used app on your phone?
DoorDash.
What's a what's a luxury you can't live without?
I really like valet parking.
Pretty good. Uh, what superpower would you want if you could have one?
Time travel.
That's cool. What's the best piece of advice you've received in your career or life?
If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, because I
Yeah.
don't believe in hell maybe.
And who is your favorite band or artist?
Lionel Richie.
Cool. All right. That's good.
Very well done. So now we're going to go into your background, a little bit more about your details. So you were born in Tarzana, California, and grew up in the San Fernando Valley. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the first, 11 years of my life, I could have been a valley girl.
How did that shape you into who you are today?
It's so interesting. I mean, it was a very nice area to grow up in. I look back on that part of my life and it was very consistent and predictable. And I played on soccer teams and t-ball. It was really, I think what really started to shape me was actually when I started moving, because I was actually a really shy child, which nobody believes me now when, when I say shy, very painfully shy. Like, I had a second grade teacher who used to pretend to wind me up, to get me to speak. So, I mean, I was painfully shy and had people that kind of speak on my behalf. So I really started to evolve once we started moving.
That's great. That's perfect segue. So one of your earliest travel memories is a trip to Tahiti. And then in eighth grade, your parents took you and your brother out of school for months and you traveled the world. Can you tell us about that and what experiences you had during that trip?
Yeah, that was an incredible trip. I mean, it's funny now, I wish I had appreciated it differently when I was that age. I think, eighth grade is one of those pivotal years where you think your parents are ruining your life because they want to take you out of school and travel the world. And, now I look back on it and think this was obviously before social media. So you were definitely more detached, but we literally started in Siberia. We started in Siberia. We took the Siberian Express, into the Soviet Union. We traveled through parts of the world that don't even really exist anymore. It was the Soviet Union now. It was the Eastern Bloc. We went through Checkpoint Charlie. I had opportunities my parents were running a YPO event in China, and I went to, an international school for 2 weeks while they were doing that. When I reflect on that experience, I mean, it really was transformative. And, we hit every continent, and it was just it's like I said, it was something you could never repeat because a lot of those countries have evolved and changed so dramatically since then. So I said I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I do now at the time, but I'm very thankful that my parents did that because it also, I think really helped my brother and I really mature. We got a lot of confidence, which I do think comes with traveling, especially as a child. Just that ability to explore and connect with different cultures and people was really quite tremendous.
Very cool. Very cool. So you got your degree from Wake Forest in communications. From going to being almost a valley girl, how did you end up on the East Coast and what made you choose to major in communications?
It's a really funny story. So I went to high school in Hawaii. So initially, when
Yeah.
I was looking at colleges, I had started looking the West Coast, but then this is funny because a lot of people from Hawaii, they either stay in Hawaii or they go far, far away, like the East Coast. So I was looking at a lot of East Coast schools. My parents were really smart. They took me during the dead of winter, though, to look at schools. So that dramatically changed my lens in terms of where I wanted to go. And my cousin actually was going to Vanderbilt at the time. And so it kind of opened my eyes to going to school in the South and ended up visiting Wake Forest on I call it an opportune day. It was during Greek week and there was a lot of really fun things happening on campus. And I think that just like made me fall in love with the concept of not only Southern schools, but Wake Forest in particular, because it just looked like a lot of fun at the time. In terms of communications, I don't really recall why. I just remember that, I just tended to gravitate towards the type of classes that were part of that major. And I guess that's why. I don't know.
That's great. That's great.
So your father John and your uncle Peter, they own the Transportation Consultants International, TCI, and then which they later acquired, Ask Mr. Foster Travel Agency. How did this shape you in the way that you got into travel and how you view travel as a whole?
Well, I mean, we just traveled a lot as a family because of, my father and my uncle being in that industry. So I just remember, traveling from a very, very young age. But what was so interesting about it, so it was just part of our DNA. And as we did, I always tell people that when we traveled, we didn't do a lot of the predictable things that people might do in terms of checking the boxes of sites. We would do site visits of hotels. I
Right.
remember doing a lot of hotel visits and having access to some really unique things because of my dad's career. But interestingly, I graduated from college with no intention of going into the travel industry. We didn't have a family business at the time. I went to work for Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture Consulting, and change management, which I was good at because I moved a lot and went through a lot of change in my life. But I think when I kind of fast forward to where I am now, I think it was just because travel was always a part of my life. It was always really important to us as a family and something that we did and relished and enjoyed.
That's great. And I love that you said you didn't do a lot of traditional travel because you've traveled to over 100 different countries and every continent except Antarctica. You haven't crossed Antarctica off your list yet?
Not yet. It's
Not
on it's
yet.
on the list. I'll get there.
All right, I know you will. I know you. So I have to ask this. We have people come on this show, who do travel often, but where is your most underrated place that you have been where you left and you're like, that blew away my expectations. I was not expecting that.
Gosh, that's a great question. Underrated. That's a really hard question. I mean, there's places that I could say I think that have a lot of misconception around it. I mean, I love India. India is one of my top 3 places in the world to visit. I tell people if they wanna go with me, it's like a money back guarantee because I believe it'll change your life. But I think it's a very misunderstood country. I think a lot of people say, we watch movies and I think that they just have one perception of it, and I don't think they understand the depth of it, that you've got oceans and deserts and lakes and I mean it's very diverse and you can go on tiger safaris and there's just so much to it. I've probably gone to India 15 times and I would continue to go back. So I mean I think it's more about maybe a destination that I just think that it's misunderstood. I'm not underrated. So I
Fair
put
enough.
that on top of my list.
That's fair. So you said that was in the top 3. What are the other 2?
Southern Africa, and I put that
Okay.
because obviously there's a lot of different countries in Southern Africa.
Sure.
I've always said it leaves an imprint on your heart and soul to go though. And then the third, it goes back and forth, but I'd probably put New Zealand in that.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
just find it just a beautiful country with a lot of diversity, and it was fun because I drove from south to north, so,
Sure.
I felt like it was one giant Microsoft screensaver that I was witnessing.
That's incredible. I think this is the first time people have said New Zealand. If I was a betting man, I would have said like Japan or something like that because everybody who goes to Japan loves it. But New Zealand, first time to make it on the show. So
Oh, good, I'm glad.
yeah, so now we have a new tip for our listeners. So that was great, Lindsay. Now we're going to dive into your career a little bit more, how you got to be the CEO of Preferred Hotels and Resorts. So you mentioned this, but after you graduated, you began your career as a management consultant at Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. You then joined Ambassadors International, which was a global meeting and incentives company as an account executive. What did those early days teach you that you still take with you today?
You know, the change management part was really interesting, because I was young. I was a college graduate and I was in a division where the change management at that point in time was obviously about there was a lot of systems implementations. Everybody that's old enough remember when Y2K was going to come and the world was going to stop. And so we were doing a lot of systems implementations and the change management piece. What was interesting being young, I was working with a lot of people that were a lot older than me, but I definitely learned the art of just listening, really just listening, asking a lot of questions. That was a lot of what I had to do because it was really facilitating what were the challenges, what were people concerned about as it related to the change that was going to happen. And I was, implementing a lot of training. So the art of listening and asking good questions is what I learned from that because especially being young and a lot of people, I think the tendency would have been to discredit, what do you know? But I sort of became a glorified therapist in some ways, but a lot of good lessons just from that, just the ability to just listen well and has served me well throughout my career. Then at Ambassadors, that was incentive travel, I think is a really fun industry to be in because you're working with a lot of diverse companies that are obviously trying to drive sales and incentivize their customers or associates through travel programs, right? You hit this goal and we're going to take you on this incredible trip. And what I loved about it was learning that every business is interesting. Like I said, whether it was car dealerships, radio stations, manufacturing companies that you really understanding how their business works and then the art of incentivizing people, I have found so interesting. And so that's why, again, I think it goes back to asking questions, being curious, and then the art of motivation and what makes people tick. And there's something about travel that gets people really motivated, especially if their spouse knows that they can go on a trip. That's even more powerful. So I think that's also where I just always realized, the power of travel more so than cash incentives or gifts. That was also something that resonated with me deeply that has obviously benefited me as I've moved across and through my career.
In 2004, your family acquired Preferred Hotels. Can you take us through what that process was like and what were the early days like after acquiring Preferred?
Sure. I mean, it was interesting probably to put in perspective, why was Preferred even for sale, I guess you could say, because Preferred originally, when it was founded, was member owned. So the hotels were actually the shareholders in the company, which was great. Now, as the company grew, it was really almost operated like a not for profit, right? Because you've got shareholders at the member hotels. After 9/11 happened, when the travel industry was obviously in quite a bit of turmoil, the company got into financial trouble. So they at that point in time, that was when they were starting to look for somebody to buy or invest in the company. And my father and mother were approached as potential people to be interested. And at that point in time, my dad was still running Ambassadors International. And that company decided to pass on it. And that was when we sat down as a family. And I still remember, this is my version of it. My parents say, I don't know if we exactly said this, but, sort of like, we think this is a great opportunity and we probably going to spend your inheritance buying a company. What do you think? And my brother and I guess we're wiser than we thought, said, well, it's really not our inheritance. This is your money. And we think it's, an exciting opportunity. And I mean, I fell hook, line, and sinker for it. My dad was smart. He never asked me to come work for the company. He just asked me to go on visits with him, because at that point in time he was meeting with a lot of different hotels and trying to understand what was working, where they found value, what wasn't working. So it was interesting. I mean, I definitely tapped into my change management skills in terms of really having to understand what wasn't working and then how were we going to turn this around. I still remember going to the first global meeting that the company had had. We were in London, and my dad telling the story about why we decided to build the business, and asking for the hotel members to give us, I think it was 9 months, to turn things around and give us the benefit of the doubt that we were the right people to be the new stewards of this company. And it was interesting times. There was a lot of things that my dad is really talented at turnarounds and change management as well. And he took people that had been at the company and said, you might be a salesperson in Italy, and guess what? You just became a regional director. What does that mean? Well, that means you now have to go out and meet with every hotel in your region in the next 30 days, and you have to accomplish the following things. So I mean, it was a very fast paced process. I remember that first year of just trying to get buy-in from the members that not only were we going to be the right people to own and lead, but really to get to the heart of, so what was working and what wasn't, and how could we facilitate change really, really quickly. So I remember it being fun, interesting, challenging, daunting at times, but it's obviously panned out.
Absolutely. And you became president and CEO, or became president in 2010 and CEO in 2014. And under your guidance, the company went through significant changes. They went through a rebranding in 2015, where Preferred Hotel Group became Preferred Hotels and Resorts. And you also introduced 5 new collections. What was the reason for the rebrand, and can you tell us more about what all went into that?
Yeah, it actually, the rebrand started because we were going to launch a new brand. And I remember we worked with a gentleman named Robert Louis, and I have him to thank for it because he came back because we'd hired him. We wanted to launch this new brand kind of in that design space. And he said, I think you have an opportunity here. He said, all of the major brands are continuing to launch new brands, right? And he said, there's so much clutter and so much confusion in it, and you have so much heritage in the Preferred Hotels and Resorts brand. He's like, I actually think you should retire several of your brands, collapse it all under Preferred, which has the greatest legacy and the greatest brand awareness, and then redefine and recategorize the hotels under these collections, which I think the travel trade, he's like, I just think people are going to understand it better than launching another brand. And you've got to put so much behind that. And so that was the decision behind it, which now I'm so glad we did because it really did simplify things. Like I said, so now all of your marketing spend and the language that goes behind it is talking about one brand. And the collections, as I said, were to define a type of luxury. And we've used a lot of different analogies. You can go from their ultra luxury for the Legend collection to approachable luxury with lifestyle collection. But it's really about more the way that people travel. And if you think about yourselves, and this is true of myself, I might stay at a Legend Collection hotel for a special occasion, or some of them it's you're willing to have that splurge, and there's other times or certain markets where it just doesn't lend itself to have an ultra luxury hotel. So that's where a lifestyle property is great. Or maybe if you're traveling with your children and saying, do I really want to spend $2,000 a night, or is the 250 price point a little bit better for me? So that's how the collections work. It really kind of runs across. They're all luxury properties. They're all full service. They all have all the right services and amenities, but different styles, different price points for different types of travel.
And you spearheaded the launch of I Preferred Hotel Rewards, that program. So it's a points-based system that has become really kind of a key differentiator for preferred hotels. So how did that idea come to be, and what makes you very passionate about that?
It was one of the first things I remember when we bought the company and we were talking to our hotel partners that they felt was an area of opportunity for us, as independent hotels to compete against the chains, and all of the chains have these loyalty programs. So that was really something that they felt that we needed to launch. And when we first did it, we actually launched it not as a points-based program. It was a recognition program. But over time, what we realized is that to be competitive, we really needed a points-based program. And so that was to be competitive, meaning obviously you've got your corporate traveler who
Yep.
is, loves to amass their points so that the benefit of being a road warrior is that you get to then go stay somewhere nice on a personal vacation. But what's been unique and what's been fun about the evolution of this program is, we really benchmarked it off of not what the chains were doing, but more along the lines of what like an American Express Fine Hotels and Resorts program is doing, right? So by nature of our hotels, it tends to skew a little bit more towards a leisure traveler and or a C-suite executive corporate traveler. So the demographics are a little bit different. It's not points where you amass points for a full free night stay. I mean, you can redeem for a credit that you can use towards your hotel stay or towards amenities and services on property. So allows a lot more flexibility from an earn and a burn standpoint. We've introduced the points and points plus, so you can do points in cash. We've really tried to make the program a lot more flexible and a lot more transparent than some of the other traditional hotel loyalty programs. If you were comparing us against, I'll call it your traditional chain model. So it's easier for the traveler to redeem. It's much better for the hotel partners as well because it actually doesn't drag down their ADR, which hotels care a lot about. So it's not hey, unless you're 85% full, you get this rate. So there's a lot of benefits on both sides to the hotel operator side as well as the person earning and redeeming.
That's great. So, Preferred Hotels and Resorts, it now represents over 650 independent hotels, resorts, and residents across 85 different countries. What's been really the key reason for growth that Preferred has seen over the past few years?
Luckily, the world's a big place, and there's always new destinations that are popping up. So I mean that lends itself to growth. But if you look at our numbers, we've been very consistent in our growth, and there's no magic number. We're really trying to be thoughtful about how we grow and looking at, I call it the hub and spoke, key city center markets, and then you look at the secondary, tertiary markets around it. So I mean that's really how we look at destinations. And the good news is the independent segment has continued to grow. So I think with the advent of the internet and people having a lot more access to information and the travelers being a lot more aligned with the independent hotel experience, as I said, travel is now a reflection upon how people look at themselves, right? So it's almost like a values alignment and where they want to stay as a reflection of that. And the independent hotels, like I said, because they're just that. They're independent, they're authentic, they're very unique to their destination. There's nothing cookie cutter about them. And you've got hotel owners and operators who are much more sophisticated and understand that they can run an independent hotel successfully, especially when they have a partner like Preferred Hotels and Resorts that gives them that access and the scale and allows them to plug into a network, but without all of the rigidity of being a part of, again, maybe a traditional chain model where, this is the bed you have to buy, these are the certain ways that you have to operate, so there's been a lot of growth in that. We've seen a lot of hotel owners deflag from major chains and go independent. And it's just a lot more viable option than it used to be. So that obviously lends itself to a lot of growth as well.
People love the hotels in the Preferred Hotels collection because of the exceptional service the people at these properties provide. And the sponsor of this episode, Actable, is on a mission to empower the people who provide hospitality like this. Actable offers a suite of software that makes delivering exceptional hospitality easier. From Alice, its service delivery platform, to Hotel Effectiveness, its labor management solution that helps hotel leaders match staffing to demand, ensuring they have the right amount of staff at the right times to provide great service without overstaffing and letting costs get out of control. And with ProfitSort, leaders get visibility into all areas of the hotel business, turning data into insight for action on how to run more effectively and profitably. Learn how Actable can help you and your teams at actable.com. That's actabl.com.
So now we're going to dive into the industry thoughts section of the podcast. One thing, great timing on this conversation, but Preferred just came out with the luxury travel report. What was your biggest takeaway from that report, and how is Preferred set up to succeed from kind of whatever stuck out to you?
There were so many great nuggets from this report. So it was really, really fun to get it. So there was 5 key takeaways and we'll put them in buckets. So the first one was beigification of travel, right? So that the traveler doesn't want, so I talked about this cookie cutter beige experience. And so because every single one of our properties is unique and distinct and special, hey, we've already nailed that one. The legacy moments, people are obviously they're continuing to prioritize travel as an investment and how they want to spend their leisure, not only their time, but their money, right? So that is great, but that also these legacy moments, and again, wanting to be somewhere unique. So that was fantastic to hear. Heritage travel outside of, Preferred Hotels and Resorts has a lot of very famous historic properties. We also have Historic Hotels of America and Historic Hotels Worldwide that we also work with. So the fact that people are now looking at history is not dusty and musty, but that they want to be a part of it. And a lot of people are actually going back to look at genealogy and revisiting their roots. And, so that's also, I think, a very unique trend that has changed, that there is this gravity towards going to more historic properties and really understanding what that was all about. Loyalty is also playing into it. We talked a lot about loyalty, but partially right now because of what is happening across the globe, and a little bit of concerns around economics. Having a loyalty program that not only you can trust but also that helps with your wallet is important. So those are all key things that are right in our wheelhouse. So that was fantastic to hear. But one of my favorite takeaways from this, and I love the term, was that travel agents are the new power brokers. And you know, back in the day, people used to think, they were gonna die off, right? Travel agents were gonna go away. Nobody was gonna use it. Everybody does everything on the web. There's so many tools that you can use. And really what's happening is people are leaning in more than ever to using travel agents because, well, when something goes wrong, it's Expedia is not the most helpful place to go, resolve things. So being able to pick up the phone, talk to somebody live, they've got access to things, and it's not just about booking air and hotel. I mean, now it's experiences, it's dining reservations. I mean, there's so much more to it. And so I love that they're calling them power brokers. That was one of my favorite kind of nuggets that came out of it as well. So we've always been big supporters of the travel trade, and that will continue to be even more so.
I agree. I love that terminology, and whoever came up with beigification, that one also made me laugh because it's like you guys do truly stand out. You're not just another luxury collection, right? So overall, I thought that report was really incredible. And if you haven't checked it out, to any of our listeners, check it out. Some really good points in there, especially if you're focused on luxury travel.
Absolutely. Well, and I was just happy to hear that international travel's still strong. And that
Absolutely.
people are. I mean, I think they said the average person in this was going to take 8 trips, and 3 of those trips would be international, which I thought was tremendous because I really did think that that was potentially something that was going to change in the current environment. And we did this in February, March. So this was after the U.S. administration had changed. So it was very timely and very relevant, which I thought was also important.
It's great.
Great. So Preferred now has over 100 properties in the Legend collection. And so how is Preferred ensuring that these hotels still have their individuality, and especially in a time when it seems like standardization is just really everywhere in hotels?
Again, I mean, it's the DNA of our brand, right? So we only work with independent luxury hotels and or small groups. So I mean, we do have some groups like Montage Hotels and Resorts or Leela Hotels that we work with. But again, each of their properties is unique and distinct. But at the same token, we do have quality assurance standards. So every hotel does have to meet quality assurance standards. They get inspected every year by a third party auditor. We've got an online reputation management. So you're able to ensure that we've got the quality assurance piece of it and that we're monitoring that on a literally on a daily basis, but also on an annual basis. It's just the antithesis of what we're not. So the Legend hotels are, there's some additional criteria that they meet, so they're going to tend to also be the rate leaders in their market, but they've won the world's best awards. They've got 5 stars and 5 diamonds. You look at their online reputations; they're very well respected, and we also lean on the travel trade community, who also says, yeah, this is an exceptional property. And I've always said their properties are their destination in their own right. You could go and never leave, and really felt like you'd experience something about that destination. So they really do sit in a very special space. I mean, every hotel across the Preferred Hotels and Resorts portfolio is unique and special. These properties take it up a next level, if I oversimplify it.
That's great. So, Preferred launched the Climate Action Plan last year. What role does sustainability and climate responsibility play in the future of luxury travel? And what kind of travelers expect when they're visiting Preferred at one of these properties?
Well, I mean, I've learned a lot about sustainability that more than obviously more in the last few years. But I think there was this misconception that sustainability and luxury were mutually exclusive. I think back in the day it was all about eco travel and that people felt that they were giving up something. And I think that is something I think that's very important for travelers to understand is that those are not mutually exclusive and that some of the most luxurious properties are at the forefront of sustainability. And when you really look at climate action and in the business we're in, we have a stake in making sure that we mitigate this. Otherwise, people aren't going to be able to continue to travel, and they're not going to be able to go visit some places in the world that I think it would be so sad. I mean, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro when I was much younger. Like that's a perfect example of a destination that climate is changing dramatically, and I would hate for people to not be able to go have that experience. And that's true of a lot of places around the globe. So being in this industry, we feel that we have to be stewards of this, that for people to continue to travel, that we've got to do the right thing. So, as a company, we also felt, okay, then we really have to walk the walk. So this isn't just what are our hotels doing, but what are we doing as a company? So we partner with a great company called the Travel Foundation, who's really been our partner in working through this process. We signed the Glasgow Declaration, which was our commitment by 2030 to reduce our emissions by 50% and by 2050 to be net zero. I had no idea what that meant. We took a leap of faith, and I said, "We're going to do this." And the Travel Foundation has been incredible at helping us do this. But I mean, the first thing was just to measure. So we had to go through every facet of our business. So we're looking at what are our offices doing. We're looking at what are our travel policies. What are we doing for our own internal events? I didn't even understand things like IT. I'm thinking IT. I don't understand how websites factor into this. Well, it's things like where are you hosting your websites, how quickly there's a lot to learn about. So we've now gone through the measure process, and so we've now set targets, and then it's really about, decarbonization, but then I've now learned it's about really regeneration because you can only plant so many trees. So, how are you going to regenerate? And then collaborating. So we're really spending a lot of time educating our hotel partners. We've got hotels that are doing a lot of incredible things, and then there's a lot of hotels are saying, "I don't know where to begin." So we're spending a lot of time educating them on that. And then our ultimate goal would be to invest. So we would love to ultimately spin up a nonprofit fund where we are really investing. So how great is it to take a percentage of profits and put it into something that's really focused towards this? So we've put it out there, so we put our climate action plan. We released that last December. We're very committed to it, but we're learning as we go. I mean, that's the one thing I've become very aware of. It is not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of commitment. And we've got our whole team on board, and we've got a wonderful hotel community who's also very committed to it.
That's great. So, what excites you most about the future of luxury travel, and where is Preferred headed next?
I don't know what's not to be excited about in luxury travel. I mean, it's. I mean, obviously, I love travel. We believe in travel. It's actually part of our manifesto, as we call it, our ideology. So we believe in the power of travel. And I think what's encouraging is, again, this and the report reinforced it, is people are looking for experiences. And I think that that's what they're prioritizing, and they're looking for connection. And travel is one of the best ways to do that. And so, I just feel like we're just well positioned to be able to deliver those experiences to people and have incredible member properties that know how to do that and are continuing to evolve in terms of what does luxury travel look like and how can you so it's not just about like thread counts anymore and 5 fixture bathrooms. I mean, it really is about helping curate incredible experiences, and you're seeing hotels really lean into that and getting to know their guests even better, right? So they're really wanting to be able to personalize it down to amenities, down to obviously the repeat guests that they get to know incredibly well. I think hotels are doing a much better job of also connecting with their local communities. So they're able to also say, okay, not only going to have a great experience on property, but let's make sure that we can curate, whether it's connecting them to the best restaurants or the best artisans or, here's where you'd go to get, personally, tailored outfits, access to, exclusive events. I mean, I think that that's where it really is this sort of cross section of bringing in their community and giving them access to things that is well beyond just having an incredible stay and sleeping in a great bed. And so I think that's evolving. I think they're also, you look at the evolution of wellness on properties. So you've got hotels that have spas, but now they've really moved into wellness. And so what does that mean? It's blackout curtains and making sure that some of them have sound machines in them and they've got curated scents and they've got, just the programming around making sure that the life when you're on the road can align with the life that you have at home and, really just focus on health, wellness, longevity. I think there's just a lot of things that hotels are really, I think, doing an incredible job of adapting to make a stay much more than a hotel stay.
You bet. And kind of to follow up on that, I was reading an article recently, and I can't remember if it had to do with the White Lotus or not. I feel like when I'm reading things about the luxury side, White Lotus is incorporated somehow. But the thing it was talking about was privacy. And that's kind of this not upcoming trend, but something in the luxury space where you're going to see these ultra luxury properties, incorporate those wellness journeys, obviously hyper personalization, but also where people don't maybe want to be around as many people
Mhm.
as they once did, but now they want to be with their groups and have a lot more privacy. Have you seen that as well, or not so much yet?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I think the area you see it more is the increase in suites and residences. You've got families or groups, I mean, that could even be friends that wanna travel together. They love being in a residence that's attached to a hotel or resort, right? Like, so they want all the service and amenities, but they want their own space, and they wanna be able to do things, like I said, together, but not necessarily with the masses, and so we continue to see the rise of a lot more residential product in our hotels and resorts, like I said, larger suites and or, again, hotels that are just getting really smart about programming. They're creating their own yoga retreats or just sort of packages around experiences where people can have a lot more of that, call it solitude in some ways, or aligned to an affinity that, we have a Post Ranch Inn is a great example. They brought in this, I don't want to call it a psychic. I know that they probably have a better word for it than that. I thought, what? That's such an interesting thing. I mean, it sells out right away because people are just really drawn towards having that sort of experience. And a place like Post Ranch Inn is a great example of a place people go to disconnect. And the way that the property is laid out, you really can have that. You can have that seclusion, those sort of intimate private spaces, but also have a really unique experience with a clairvoyant. So
That's very cool. Very cool. So, my last question I have to ask you is, being the CEO of Preferred Hotels, what advice do you have for those maybe younger people out there, or even not, maybe somebody who's looking to be the CEO of their company, or who's somebody who's interested in getting in hospitality?
well, hospitality is a great career. So I would start by saying that. And I think there's this, belief that, being a hotel general manager is also a great career, but there's so many different facets of hospitality that people can get into. So I think that's also, I'm always trying to educate younger students on that. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do. So there's the finance side, the development side, the operations side, the sales and marketing side of it, the experiential side. There's so many facets to hospitality I think are great. I've always said the best part about my career is it's intellectually and emotionally stimulating. You get to meet really fascinating people in the travel industry. It's global. So, I mean, I just find it, like I said, it's just an interesting career, always evolving. It's kind of cute. I was actually with 6 high school students last night. They're all about to graduate. And something came up about being a CEO. And I said, so which one of you thinks that you want to be a CEO? And what I loved is all 6 of them raised their hand. And they said, we all want to be CEOs. And I thought that was great in the sense that, their perspective was that anything is possible. And when they asked, well, what do we have to do to do that? And I said, do something you're passionate about, be curious, always learning. It's okay to change your mind. My father taught me that very early on. My first job, I agonized over. For whatever reason, thought if I took that, that was going to be my job for the rest of my life. And, so you have to remember, you might get into something and hate it. That's okay. Leave, move on. I think that, also getting the younger generation comfortable with do it, try it, learn from it. If that's not the right fit, go look for something else, but continue to follow your passion. I mean, I think that's why I've been so successful at what I do. I'm doing something I love and I'm passionate about, right? It was in my DNA from a young age, even though I didn't know it. And, you know, it makes it so much easier. But I've also learned to, I mean, th- being a CEO, I'm about to take on a coach again. And they're like, why? And I said, because that's the other thing you realize. Just because you're the CEO does not mean that you have the answers. As a matter of fact, you probably have less answers than you really have to rely on your team, and it almost becomes like you're the tiebreaker, right? It's when a decision needs to be made that you'll make the final call. But I've learned to hire smart people, trust them, say give them a lot of authority and autonomy, tug on that rope every once in a while to make sure that we're all still aligned. But the greatest gift I've been given as a CEO is really hiring really, really talented people and trusting them and them trusting me that, we're focused on growth, thoughtful growth. I love being a privately held family owned business because we can make medium to long-term decisions. We're not beholden to a shareholder. And I think that's a really nice gift to have as a CEO as well, that you're not having to make very short-term decisions based on that. And I'm very lucky for that and that my family's still involved.
That was great. So, Lindsay, we've been asking you questions this whole time. You're probably tired of giving answers. So, we're going to turn the tables a little bit and we're going to let you ask David and I a question.
Oh, okay. What's your most used app on your phones?
I'll go because mine's it's LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn all the time because I just find with some people it's almost like they're paying more attention to LinkedIn than they are their actual messages. So for some people, I feel like
True.
and I always want to just for me, I'm just always on there trying to make sure that I'm congratulating people or connecting people or making comments and just kind of seeing what's going on. So that's by far my most used app.
Okay.
I would say that's probably close for me. My mail app, I'm always on that. Whenever I'm like away from my computer, I'm always seeing if I have any emails or things like that. So responding. So that is going to be one of my top used ones as well. But I would have to say like ESPN is also one of my top ones too. I'm always going to check scores, things like that. Once football season comes back, fantasy football app will be my number one app
Okay.
for that one. So, great question. First time anybody's ever asked us that.
Here's
So,
here's here's an easy one. Window or aisle when you travel?
window.
Aisle.
Okay.
John's in the middle.
Yeah, there's
Poor
yeah.
John. Poor John. I'm curious because you travel a lot as well. Do you have like what are you currently either binge watching on one of your favorite networks and or is there a podcast that you really enjoy besides your own?
Believe it or not, we're not listening to our own podcast when we're traveling.
Yeah.
The podcast that I'm listening to right now, which I just can't get enough of, How I Made My First Million. So that is my number one podcast that I'm listening to, and I'm behind the curve on this one. I'm currently binging White Lotus, so that one I'm a little bit behind, and then The Righteous Gemstones on HBO is also one that I have been binging a little bit as well.
Okay, I'll have to write that down. David, what about you?
Oh, no, sorry. YouTube because I've just found that I kind of like the distraction given on my mood. I might because everything's up in your feed, so it might be something political, might be something with sports, it might be old movie clips. So for me, I don't know why, but I think once COVID hit, I just got into this YouTube phase where I like just going in and typing in like Benny Hill or Pink Panther movies and just seeing little clips because I don't want to watch the whole thing. So that's mine.
I could do this all day long. We play this game. We play this game at our company all the time. I call it the hot seat, and we just love asking people random questions. So what's the one destination you really want to visit?
Ooh, in domestic or international?
Either.
Either.
Hmm.
So Japan, I really want to go to Japan. Everybody said that. That's why. But I really want to go to Alaska as well. I don't know if you've ever seen Alaska Bush People, but that was one of my binges
I love it.
a while ago. So like I would love to just I love the outdoors. So go to Alaska and kind of be able to bum around up there.
So you're not being a good guest, Steve. You're only supposed to say one, not
Oh,
two.
sorry. Yes.
Okay. I would say Greece. I
Okay.
haven't been to Greece yet. My father's side of the family is Greek, so I just would love to go. I just haven't. For whatever reason, there has been a lot of hospitality events or things to go to Greece, which has kind of been a lot of my international travel. So
Both are great choices that you picked. Maybe you just go on vacation there.
There we go.
yeah,
There.
no, I need to. Yeah.
Well, that was great, Lindsay. Great questions for us. We have one more question before we get you out of here. Our producer, John, who is the middle seat guy, has been listening the whole time, and we are going to kick it over to him for one final question before we let you go.
Uh-oh. Okay.
It's not, maybe it's a hard one, but this one's more for our audience. You know, you've seen so many independent hotels, hoteliers. I would say my question is, what do you see the most successful hoteliers doing? Like, is there any common denominators that you see? Anything that you can kind of leave our audience with?
I find that general managers who are out interacting with their guests, like I call them front of house general managers. You know, they're the ones that are there greeting their guests, having conversations. I find are incredibly successful. And also general managers that go stay at their competitors and visit other hotels.
Mm.
But I think that those are two very important things so that they really understand what the competition is doing. They understand what's new and fresh, but just being front of house, really understanding what your guest wants, I think is the perfect recipe for success. And I tend to find that the leaders of hotels like that are doing that have a better experience.
I agree 100%. I love the answer to that question because I had one owner when I ran a hotel in Times Square who said, "You're never in your office." And I said, "That's because I need to be out seeing what's going on, walking the floors, checking in with the front desk, bellman,
Yep.
all that stuff." So I love that answer. So that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. Lindsay, this is where you get to let people know how they can find out more about Preferred, how they can get in touch with you. So plug away.
Sure. Well, visit us at two different ways, preferredhotels.com or Preferred Travel Group to learn about the parent company and all the things that we're doing there. As it relates to me, well, you can track me down on Instagram or send me a personal email at lueberoth@preferredhotels.com. I do love hearing from hoteliers and guests alike. So thanks for having me on. It was really a lot of fun.
No, that's great. Well, that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier, hospitality's most engaged podcast. And whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate you and hope to be with you again soon. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
People love the hotels in the Preferred Hotels collection because of the exceptional service the people at these properties provide. And the sponsor of this episode, Actable, is on a mission to empower the people who provide hospitality like this. Actable offers a suite of software that makes delivering exceptional hospitality easier. From Alice, its service delivery platform, to Hotel Effectiveness, its labor management solution that helps hotel leaders match staffing to demand, ensuring they have the right amount of staff at the right times to provide great service without overstaffing and letting costs get out of control. And with ProfitSort, leaders get visibility into all areas of the hotel business, turning data into insight for action on how to run more effectively and profitably. Learn how Actable can help you and your teams at actable.com. That's ACTABL.com.
You made it to the end of The Modern Hotelier. Thanks for watching or listening. The Modern Hotelier is produced by Modern Hotelier Media. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you know a good guest, sponsor, or have media needs, feel free to reach out to us at hello@themodernhotelier.com. Thanks and have a great day.